There are sounds you never forget. The sound of your baby's first cry. The sound of the phone ringing in the middle of the night with bad news. And the sound of a knock on your door that you recognize instantly, even after 6 months of silence. I'm Loretta Johnson. I'm 57 years old. And on a Saturday afternoon in January, I heard 3 knocks on my apartment door. 3 knocks in a rhythm I'd know anywhere. My son, Marcus. Standing outside my door after 6 months of absolutely nothing. No calls, no texts, no acknowledgement that I even existed. 6 months of silence after he called me selfish and blocked my number. 6 months of wondering if I'd lost my son forever. Before I tell you what happened when I opened that door and what he said that changed everything, I want to ask you something. If this story speaks to you, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel because Loretta's journey continues, and drop a comment telling me what city you're listening from. It means everything to know where my stories reach. This is about the apology I'd been waiting for, the words I thought I'd never hear, and the choice I had to make about whether forgiveness was even possible. 6 months had passed since the last time I saw Marcus. 6 months since that family meeting where he and Diane and Kevin sat in my living room and told me I was being selfish. 6 months since I asked them all to leave. A lot had changed in those 6 months. I'd sold my house, moved into my new apartment, started my watercolor classes, made real friends who knew me as Loretta, not just as someone's mother. Diane and I were slowly rebuilding. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't what it used to be. But we were talking. She was bringing the grandkids over. We were trying. But Marcus? Nothing. Complete silence. I'd tried reaching out at first, called him a few times in the first month, left voicemails, sent texts, all ignored. Eventually, I stopped trying, because you can't force someone to want a relationship with you, even your own child. The pain of losing him was still there, but it had become duller, more like a constant ache than a sharp stab. I'd learned to live with it, to function around it. I told myself I was fine, that I'd made peace with the possibility that Marcus might never come back, that some relationships just end, even family ones. But I never stopped hoping, never stopped wondering, never stopped listening for that knock on the door that might mean he'd changed his mind. It was a Saturday afternoon in late January, cold outside, gray skies, the kind of day that makes you want to stay inside with tea and a good book. I was in my apartment wearing comfortable clothes, leggings and an oversized sweater. My hair was in a simple style, no makeup, just me on a lazy Saturday. I'd set up my watercolor supplies on the kitchen table. I was working on a landscape, trees and a river, nothing fancy, just something peaceful to occupy my mind. I had plans to meet Gloria for dinner later. She'd found this new Italian place she wanted to try. I was looking forward to it, to having something to do, someone to talk to. My life was good, quiet, but good. I'd built something for myself, something that didn't depend on my kids or their approval or their presence. I'd learned to be okay alone. And that was powerful, because I wasn't waiting anymore, wasn't putting my life on hold hoping they'd come back. I was just living, and most days that was enough. I was mixing colors on my palette when I heard it. 3 knocks on my door, not just any knocks, 3 quick knocks, tap, 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 a specific rhythm. My brush stopped mid-stroke. My whole body went still. I knew that knock. I'd heard it 1,000 times over the years. Marcus had knocked like that since he was a teenager. 3 quick knocks, always the same pattern. Never the doorbell, always that knock. My heart started pounding. It couldn't be. Could it? I set down my brush, wiped my hands on a towel, walked slowly toward the door. Through the peephole, I could see him, Marcus, standing in my hallway, hands shoved in his jacket pockets, looking down at his feet. He looked different, thinner, tired. His shoulders were hunched in a way I'd never seen before. I stood there, frozen, hand on the doorknob, not sure if I should open it, not sure if I was ready. A million thoughts ran through my mind in those few seconds. Why was he here? What did he want? Was this another attempt to get money? Another demand disguised as a visit? Or was it something else? Something real? Part of me wanted to pretend I wasn't home, to let him stand there and knock and eventually leave, to protect myself from whatever this was. Because 6 months of silence doesn't just end with a knock on the door. Not without consequences, not without questions. But another part of me, the part that had carried him in my body and raised him and loved him even when he hurt me, that part couldn't not answer, couldn't not open the door. He was my son, and no matter what had happened between us, that meant something. I took a deep breath, smoothed down my sweater, and opened the door. Marcus looked up when he heard the door open. Our eyes met. For a moment, neither of us said anything. We just stood there, mother and son, strangers and family all at once. He looked worse up close. The circles under his eyes were dark, almost purple. His face was gaunt. His usual confident posture was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like shame. "Hi, Mom," he said finally. His voice was rough, quiet, nothing like the angry, entitled tone I'd heard 6 months ago. "Marcus," I said, just his name, nothing else, because I didn't know what else to say. Can I come in?" he asked. "Please?" The please struck me. Marcus didn't say please often, didn't ask, usually just assumed. I stepped back, made room. He walked past me into the apartment, moving slowly, like he wasn't sure he had the right to be there. I closed the door behind him. Marcus stood in my living room, looking around like he'd never seen it before. Because he hadn't. This was the first time he'd been to my new place. "It's nice," he said, his voice still quiet. "Really nice." I didn't respond. I just stood there, arms crossed, waiting for him to tell me why he was here, what he wanted, what this was about. He kept looking around, at my paintings on the walls, at my reading chair by the window, at the bookshelf I'd bought at a thrift store and painted myself. He seemed nervous, fidgety. His hands went from his pockets to rubbing the back of his neck to hanging at his sides. I'd never seen Marcus nervous like this. Marcus was usually confident to the point of arrogance, always sure he was right, always ready with an explanation or excuse. But this Marcus? This was someone I didn't recognize. The silence stretched between us, heavy, loaded with 6 months of hurt and anger and things unsaid. I wasn't going to make this easy for him. If he came here, he needed to speak first, needed to explain, needed to say whatever he came to say. I'd spent too many years making things comfortable for him, smoothing over awkward moments, filling silences. Not anymore. Marcus cleared his throat, looked at me, looked away, back to me again. "Can you sit?" he asked. There's something I need to tell you." The way he said it made my stomach drop. Something in his tone, something serious. I walked to my reading chair, sat down, waited. Marcus sat on the edge of my couch, perched there like he might bolt at any second. His hands were clasped together, knuckles white. And then he started talking. "That business," he started. "The startup I wanted the $25,000 for. It failed." He said it flat, matter of fact, but I could hear the shame underneath. "The guy running it, my friend from college, he wasn't who I thought he was. He took money from a bunch of investors and disappeared, just vanished, with everything." I stayed quiet, let him talk. "I'd already put in $12,000, Marcus continued. "Money I'd borrowed from friends, from credit cards. I lost it all. And now the other investors, they're threatening to sue everyone involved, including me." He looked up at me. His eyes were red. "I lost everything, Mom. The money, the opportunity, my credibility, everything." I still didn't say anything, because I'd tried to tell him. 6 months ago, I'd said no because I knew. I knew it wasn't solid, knew he wasn't ready, knew it would end like this. But he hadn't wanted to hear it then, and I wasn't going to say "I told you so" now. Marcus kept talking. The words seemed to pour out of him like he'd been holding them in for too long. He told me about what happened after the business fell apart, how he'd spiraled, stopped looking for work, stopped leaving his apartment, just sat there in the dark, feeling sorry for himself. How Kevin and Diane let him stay on their couch for a few weeks. But Kevin got tired of it, started making comments about Marcus needing to get his life together, about being a grown man living on someone else's couch. How eventually Kevin told him he had to go, that he was causing stress in the house, that the kids were starting to ask questions. How Marcus then stayed with friends, different couches, different floors, wearing out his welcome everywhere he went. I even slept in my car for a while, he said quietly. In a Walmart parking lot, me, 32 years old, sleeping in my car. I felt my chest tighten, the image of my son sleeping in a car. But I didn't reach out, didn't comfort, just listened. You know what the worst part was? Marcus said, looking directly at me now. It was realizing that you were right. About all of it. He let out a bitter laugh. I was lying there in my car one night, cold, hungry, feeling sorry for myself, and I kept thinking about what you said, about how I needed to learn to stand on my own, about how giving me money wasn't helping me, it was enabling me. His voice cracked. And I finally got it. You weren't being cruel. You weren't being selfish. You were trying to save me from exactly this. From hitting rock bottom because I never learned to build a foundation. Tears started rolling down his face. He didn't wipe them away. I was so angry at you, he said, so convinced you were wrong, that you didn't understand, that you didn't care. But you were the only one who saw clearly. You were trying to protect me, and I hated you for it. Marcus wiped his face with the back of his hand, took a shaky breath. I couldn't keep living like that, he said. Something had to change, so I swallowed my pride and got a job. A real job. Warehouse work. He said it like he was admitting to something shameful. I wake up at 5 a.m. I lift boxes for 8 hours. My back hurts. My feet hurt. I come home exhausted. It's nothing like what I thought I'd be doing at 32. He looked at me. But you know what? I'm doing it. I'm showing up every day. I'm paying my own bills. I'm not asking anyone for money. I'm finally standing on my own 2 feet. There was something in his voice. Not pride exactly, but something. Relief, maybe. Or the beginning of self-respect. And I kept thinking about you, he continued. About how you did this. You worked 3 jobs after Dad died. You never complained. Never made us feel like we were a burden. You just did what needed to be done. I never really thought about it, Marcus said. About what you went through, what you sacrificed. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I always just assumed you were okay, that you had money saved somewhere, that saying no to me was just you being difficult. But you didn't have savings, did you? You were just exhausted, used up, and still somehow finding a way to give. I felt tears prickling at my own eyes now, because he was finally seeing it, finally understanding. I took you for granted, he said, my whole life. I just assumed you'd always be there, always say yes, always fix things. I never asked if you were okay, if you needed anything, if you were tired or scared or overwhelmed. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry for all of it. Marcus stood up, started pacing, like he couldn't sit still with everything he needed to say. I'm sorry for blocking you, for refusing to talk to you, for acting like you didn't exist for 6 months. He turned to face me. I'm sorry for that family meeting, for ambushing you in your own house, for letting Kevin talk to you like that, for making you feel ganged up on. His hands were shaking. I'm sorry for the things I posted on Facebook, for talking bad about you to family, for painting you as the villain when you were trying to help me. He came closer, stopped a few feet away from my chair. I'm sorry for never saying thank you, for all the money you gave me over the years, for all the times you bailed me out, for all the chances you gave me that I wasted. Tears were streaming down his face now. I'm sorry for treating you like a bank instead of my mother, for only calling when I needed something, for taking and never giving back. Marcus sat back down, wiped his face with his sleeve. These past few months, working at the warehouse, living on my own money, it's been hard, he said. Really hard. But it's also been good, because I'm learning things I should have learned a long time ago. He looked at his hands. I'm learning that work doesn't have to be glamorous to be valuable. That showing up consistently matters more than having big ideas. That taking care of yourself is harder than it looks. He glanced at me. I'm learning how to budget, how to say no to things I can't afford, how to deal with disappointment and stress without having someone else fix it for me. There was a maturity in his voice I'd never heard before. I'm not where I want to be yet, he admitted. I'm still figuring things out, still making mistakes, but I'm doing it on my own, and that feels important. Like I'm finally becoming the person I should have been years ago. Marcus covered his face with his hands for a moment. When he looked up, his expression was raw. I'm ashamed, Mom, deeply ashamed. I'm 32 years old, and I've never really accomplished anything on my own. Every job I've had, I've quit or gotten fired. Every business idea, I've expected someone else to fund. Every problem, I've waited for you to solve. He shook his head. I was so entitled, so convinced the world owed me something, that you owed me something, just because I was your son, just because I existed. His voice got quieter. When you said no, when you finally set a boundary, I couldn't handle it, because I'd never had to. You'd always given in before, so I got angry. Vicious, even. Because it was easier to make you the bad guy than to admit I was the problem. He looked directly at me. But I was the problem, Mom, not you, me. And I'm sorry it took me hitting rock bottom to figure that out. Marcus took a deep breath. His next words came out shaky. I know I don't deserve it. I know I've burned bridges and broken trust and hurt you in ways that might not be fixable. But I have to ask. He looked at me with red, pleading eyes. Can you forgive me? Not right now, maybe. I know that's asking too much. But someday? Eventually? His voice cracked. I'm not asking you to forget. I'm not asking you to go back to the way things were. I don't even want that. The way things were wasn't healthy for either of us. He wiped his eyes again. I just want a chance to show you I've changed. To prove that I'm not that person anymore. To build something new with you. Something better. Something where I'm actually showing up as your son, not as your burden. He waited, hands clasped, eyes on me. Vulnerable in a way I'd never seen him. And I realized something. This was real. This wasn't manipulation. This wasn't a performance to get what he wanted. This was my son. Actually seeing himself clearly for the first time, and it was painful for him, but also necessary. I sat there for a long moment, just looking at him, processing everything he'd said. Part of me wanted to rush in, to hug him, to say of course I forgave him, to make it all better right now. But I couldn't do that. Because easy forgiveness wouldn't help him, wouldn't help either of us. He needed to understand that words weren't enough, that apologies, no matter how sincere, couldn't erase 6 months of pain, couldn't undo years of taking me for granted, and I needed to protect myself. To not fall back into old patterns just because he said the right things. So I took my time, let the silence sit, let him feel the weight of what he'd done. Finally, I spoke. Marcus, I said, my voice steady. I waited 6 months to hear this. 6 months of silence, of wondering if I'd lost my son forever, of seeing my grandchildren grow through Diane because you wouldn't speak to me. He started to say something, but I held up my hand. Let me finish. You came here. You apologized. And I believe you're sincere. I do. But apologies don't erase 6 months of pain. They don't rebuild trust that's been broken. I leaned forward in my chair. You called me selfish. You turned family against me. You posted things on social media painting me as a terrible mother. You blocked me. Cut me out completely. Like I was nothing. My voice wavered, but I kept going. Do you know what that felt like? To be erased by your own child? To wonder every single day if I'd done something so terrible that I deserved to lose you. Tears rolled down my cheeks now. I mourned you, Marcus. I grieved losing you like you died. Because in a way, you had. The son I knew wouldn't have treated me like that. I wiped my eyes, sat up straighter. I appreciate your apology, I continued. I'm glad you're working and supporting yourself. I'm glad you've learned these lessons. But I need you to understand something. I looked directly at him. I'm not the same mother I was 6 months ago. The mother who always said yes, who always fixed your problems, who put your needs before her own health and happiness. That mother is gone. Marcus nodded slowly. I've built a life for myself, I said. A good life. A peaceful life. And I'm not willing to sacrifice that. Not for anyone. Not even for you. I took a breath. So, if you want to rebuild our relationship, it has to be on different terms. New terms, where we're both adults. Where you don't come to me expecting me to solve your problems or fund your dreams. I continued, laying it all out clearly. Here's what I need from you if we're going to move forward. First, no asking for money. Not now, not later. You're supporting yourself. Keep doing that. Marcus nodded. I understand. Second, no showing up unannounced. Except for today, I'll let this one slide. But from now on, you call first. You ask if it's okay to visit. You respect my space and my time. Okay, he said quietly. Third, no more posts on social media about me, about us, about our relationship. If you have something to say to me, you say it to me, directly, like an adult. I deleted all those posts, he said, 2 months ago. I know it doesn't undo the damage, but they're gone. I nodded. That was something at least. And fourth, most important, you have to prove this is real, not with words, with actions, with consistency, with showing up over time. Because I've heard apologies before, Marcus. What I need now is change. What do you think Loretta should do? Should she forgive Marcus immediately or make him prove himself first? Drop your thoughts below. Marcus listened to every word, didn't interrupt, didn't argue, didn't make excuses. When I finished, he said simply, "That's fair. All of it. More than fair, actually. I'll do it. Whatever it takes." I searched his face for signs of resentment, for that familiar defensiveness, for any hint that he was just saying what I wanted to hear. But I didn't see any of that. I saw acceptance, understanding, maybe even relief that I was giving him a chance at all. "I know I have to earn your trust back," he said. "I know that's going to take time, months, maybe years. And I'm okay with that. I'll show you I've changed, however long it takes." He meant it, I could tell. This wasn't the Marcus who expected everything to be fixed with a simple sorry. This was someone who understood consequences, who understood that some things, once broken, take time and effort to repair, if they can be repaired at all. We sat in silence for another moment. The air between us felt different now, still heavy, but less hostile, more like the beginning of something than the end. "You want some coffee?" I asked finally. Marcus looked surprised. Then a small, genuine smile appeared on his face, the first smile I'd seen from him today. "I'd love some," he said. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. Marcus followed. We stood there in my small kitchen while I made coffee. It was strange, awkward, but also familiar in a way that made my chest ache. This was something we used to do, years ago, before everything got complicated, before money and resentment and broken promises. We'd sit at the kitchen table and just talk. Maybe we could find our way back to that. A different version of it, one that was healthier for both of us. We sat at my small kitchen table with our coffee. For a few minutes, we didn't talk about the heavy stuff. We just talked. Marcus told me about his job, about the warehouse, about the guys he worked with, about how hard it was waking up at 5 in the morning, but how good it felt to earn his own paycheck. He told me about his supervisor, a guy named Pete who'd been working there for 15 years. "He's tough but fair," Marcus said. Kind of reminds me of you, actually. I almost smiled at that. I told him about my watercolor classes, about Gloria and Janet and Shirley, about how we'd gone to an art exhibit last month and had dinner after. You have friends, he said, and there was something in his voice. Surprise, maybe, or realization. I do, I said. Good friends, people who care about me. Not just people who need things from you, I wanted to add. But I didn't. That was the old hurt talking, and I was trying to move forward. After coffee, Marcus asked if he could see the rest of the apartment. It was small, so there wasn't much to show. But I walked him through anyway, showed him my bedroom with the comfortable bed I'd bought myself. The second bedroom I'd turned into a reading nook and craft space. He looked at my watercolor paintings hanging on the walls, really looked at them. "These are good, Mom," he said. "Really good. I didn't know you could paint like this." I didn't either, I admitted. I never had time to find out before. He turned to me. "You seem happy here, really happy." I nodded. I am. For the first time in a very long time, I'm actually happy, content, at peace. He looked around the small apartment one more time, at the cozy furniture, the plants by the window, the books on the shelves, the life I'd built without him. "I'm glad," he said quietly, and I believed him. We walked back to the living room. Marcus seemed hesitant about something. Finally, he asked, "Do you think we'll ever be okay again? Like, really okay?" I thought carefully before answering, because I wanted to be honest. Not cruel, but honest. "I don't know if we'll ever go back to what we were before," I said. "But maybe that's not the goal. Maybe we can be something new, something healthier." I sat down in my chair. He sat on the couch. "If you keep doing the work," I continued, "if you keep showing up, if you prove over time that you've really changed, then yes, I think we can build something good. Different, but good." Marcus nodded slowly. "I can live with different, as long as I don't lose you completely." "You won't lose me," I said. "I'm your mother. That doesn't change. But the relationship has to change, has to grow up. We both have to grow up." "I understand," he said. And I thought maybe he finally did. Marcus asked about Jaden and Amara. He said he'd seen Diane a few times, but things were awkward between them too. "She's angry at me," he said, "for dragging her into everything, for making her choose sides. She's talking to you now, but she's barely talking to me." I didn't say anything. That was between him and Diane. "I miss the kids," he said. "I used to see them all the time. Now I barely see them at all." I mentioned that Diane was bringing them over on Wednesday. "If you want to be here, you can be. But that's up to you and Diane to work out." His face lit up. "Really? You'd be okay with that?" "They're your nephew and niece," I said, "and you need to be a better uncle to them than you've been. Show them what it looks like to take responsibility, to grow up." He nodded seriously. "I will. I promise." "Don't promise," I said. "Just do it." We talked for another hour, about nothing heavy, just catching up, filling in the gaps of 6 months. Eventually, Marcus looked at his phone and said he needed to go. He had to work early the next morning. "Warehouse doesn't care if you stayed up late," he said with a tired smile. 5 a.m. comes whether you're ready or not." I walked him to the door. He put on his jacket, turned to face me before leaving. "Thank you, Mom," he said, "for listening, for giving me a chance, for not just slamming the door in my face when I showed up." "You're my son," I said simply. "That still means something." His eyes got wet again. "I won't let you down this time. I know I've said that before, but I mean it now. I really mean it." "Don't make promises you can't keep," I said. "Just show up, consistently. That's all I need to see." If you're still here, thank you for staying with Loretta's journey. The conclusion is coming, and it's worth the wait. Marcus stepped forward and hugged me. It wasn't like the hugs I used to give him when he was little, when I'd wrap him up and he'd be small in my arms. This was different. This was two adults, two people who'd hurt each other trying to find their way back. I hugged him back, let myself feel it. The relief, the hope, the fear that this might not last, all of it. When we pulled apart, we were both crying a little. I love you, Mom, he said. I love you too, baby, I said. I always have. Even when I was angry, even when you hurt me, I never stopped loving you. He nodded, wiped his eyes. I'll call you, tomorrow, just to talk. Not because I need anything, just to talk. I'd like that, I said. And then he left. And I stood at my door for a long time after it closed, just breathing, processing, hoping. Marcus did call the next day. Just a quick call to say hi, to tell me about work, to ask how I was. It felt strange. Good, but strange. He called again 2 days later, then 3 days after that. Not every day, but regularly, consistently. He showed up on Wednesday when Diane brought the kids. He brought pizza, paid for it with his own money, played with Jaden and Amara, helped clean up after. He didn't expect me to wait on him, didn't leave the mess for me to handle, actually helped. Diane watched him carefully. She and I exchanged glances a few times, both of us wondering if this was real, if it would last. But for that afternoon, it was nice. It felt like family, messy and imperfect, but family. In the weeks that followed, Marcus kept showing up, not physically every time, but showing up in the ways that mattered. He texted regularly, called to check in, came by for dinner once, brought groceries, and insisted on cooking for me. He talked about his job, his goals, his plans, but they were different now, grounded, realistic. He wasn't talking about becoming a millionaire or starting the next big company. He was talking about maybe getting promoted to shift supervisor, about saving money for a better apartment, about taking a community college class in business management. Small goals, achievable goals, grown-up goals. I watched him carefully. Part of me was proud. Part of me was still protecting my heart. Because I'd seen false starts before. I'd seen good intentions fade. But this felt different. This felt real. Was it permanent? I didn't know. People can change. But people can also slip back into old patterns. All I could do was take it day by day. Let him prove himself through his actions, not his words, and hope, cautiously, carefully hope, that maybe, just maybe, I hadn't lost my son after all, that maybe he'd just been lost for a while, and now he was finding his way back, not to who he was before, but to who he was meant to be all along. So that's what happened when my son knocked on my door after 6 months of silence, when he showed up unannounced and said the words I'd been waiting to hear. I'm sorry. You were right, I understand now. Were those words enough? No, words are never enough on their own. But they were a start, a foundation. And he backed them up with actions, with showing up, with actually changing his behavior, with finally growing up. I don't know what the future holds for Marcus and me. I don't know if he'll stay on this path or if he'll stumble, if old habits will creep back in, if this change is permanent or temporary. But for now, I'm allowing myself to hope, to believe that people can change, that my son can change, that the work he's doing on himself is real. I'm not naive. I'm not going back to being the mother who fixes everything, who sacrifices herself for her children's comfort. That woman is gone, and she's not coming back. But I can be a mother who supports from a healthy distance, who celebrates growth, who loves without enabling. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's actually better. Have you ever had someone come back into your life after months or years of silence? Did they apologize? Did you forgive them? How did you know if the change was real? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your stories. If you've been following Loretta's journey, thank you. Thank you for being here through all of it. The pain, the boundaries, the hard conversations, and now this fragile hope. Please subscribe if you haven't already. There are more stories coming. Real stories about the messy, complicated work of healing family relationships. And before you go, click on the next video. It's about the hardest choice I ever had to make. When Diane asked me for help one more time, and I had to decide if saying yes would undo all the progress we'd made. Thank you for listening. Thank you for understanding that forgiveness isn't weakness and boundaries aren't cruelty. Thank you for walking this journey with me. I'll see you in the next one.